Welcome to episode 19 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. I am Joshua Buckley with my co-host, Paula Page.
I'm feeling the positive vibes, everybody.
Yeah, he is not gone, unlike other people. Alex, producing in New York.
Hello.
Danny on the socials in Baltimore.
I'm pouring some positive vibes.
And guys, it happened. It finally happened. After a disastrous late 2-1 loss to Ipswich with the meltdowns galore, meltdowns with set pieces, meltdowns after the final whistle, officially gone. Paul, had to happen, right? Like, there was no doubt after that match.
No, Leah, no doubt. Like the worst possible outcome, for a crucial fixture. It, like, throughout that game, it just gave me the vibes of being a really bad cup game against a lower league team, never mind a really important Premier League fixture. In just the way that we were going about it ourselves, never mind them and all their talk of having 5 players that used to be in League One that have gone all the way up or whatever it is. It looked like they were on our team more than Ipswich's. So it just had everything that's been wrong about O'Neill's tenure was summarised in that 90 minutes, from conceding such a stupid first goal to the winner that everyone could have written the script for, to the scenes afterwards, to the subs, which I had little idea of even what was going on the second half in terms of who was coming on and where they were supposed to be playing. If that was a microcosm of O'Neill's tenure, it was a perfect fit for it to be the last moments.
I wanted to believe in Gary O'Neill. I did, even probably a month and a half ago. I was all for backing him, and I just... Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, Danny. And again, I don't know what's going on with the set pieces, but to lose that match the way they did on just another set piece flub up, inexcusable.
It's the kind of thing that makes you question reality, like question just the basics of the reality that we live in with this team, where it just seems like they're the most simple mistakes. And we've seen it happen, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times this season, almost identical types of goals. And it's just like, I mean, at the very least, can we stop conceding that goal? It's so odd. I also have, I wouldn't say I've defended Gary O'Neill, but I've defended the choice to keep him, which maybe people think I'm splitting hairs there, but it's just like, it's the accumulation of these things that does it. And obviously it's easy for people now to feel like it was 2 months too late.
Prior to that match, Jeff Shee penned another beautiful editorial for the Express and Star, Alex. How do you feel about Jeff Shee's positive ions and atoms? And
I just want to say I've always loved FOSUN. I'm a big Jeff Shee fan because he's clearly listening to this show. So Jeff, we love you because Josh, you were satirically penning a Jeff Shee letter or writing Jeff Shee comments before this was released and stealing it from, I forget what show already. Three Body Problem. And then he comes out of left field with a science lesson that is even more abstract than Three Body Problem when it comes to how you relate it to football. So he one-upped you, Josh, and he's clearly listening.
It was I couldn't stop laughing because that was straight up. I mean, the type of ridiculousness we're going to love. And then he didn't even show up for the match. What are you going to do? So 2-1 loss. However, while that was a bad loss and could end up relegating us in the end, there are ramifications that are going to come from this game due to some dust-ups, Paul. Matheus Cunha took off glasses, put his hands on the face of an Ipswich staff member, ate Nari, was getting into it with some people. He got a second yellow, so he's out this match. Cunha's been charged by the FA. He has till Thursday to respond. What are your thoughts on this?
You're always a little behind the action whenever stuff like this happens. So who knows what prompted it kicking off, but doesn't it really piss you off that you wish they'd show that passion in the 90 minutes preceding it? Maybe we wouldn't end up scuffling with like these players and squad members after the fact, after a really embarrassing loss against a team that you should comfortably be beating. So again, out the two of them, I don't know what contributed to certainly Cunha's actions, why he was involved and reaching out to grab someone's glasses or making an attempt for their face. Who knows? Hopefully it's revealed in some detail in his appeal, and maybe that warrants it, justifies it. Who knows if something was said or whatever. But the one that really got me was Aït-Nouri, because it was going on throughout the game pretty much. There was some niggle there, but again, it's like he's the type of player that I wish I'd have seen that passion more on the pitch for the 90 minutes. So we should have seen that aggression of going after the ball and tracking and actually doing his job, rather than a big show at the end and being carried away. So does it talk to more of a wider discipline problem that hopefully if there is one, the incoming manager quickly recognizes and corrects? Because there's a certain profile of player, and not singling him out, Aït-Nouri could be the one that, if it does come down to some type of questioning around his discipline or his specific output on the pitch in terms of effort, everyone was kind of up in arms when Lopetegui was effectively bombing him out and thinking he'd be on his way. Now, is that going to be similar with the new guy coming in and seeing that Aït-Nouri could be an issue? So I think it's going to have a few players based on what we know of status and how he approaches teams and putting it together. A few could be in for a bit of a wake-up call, I think.
I did say, what was it, last week or the week before? I think Aït-Nouri's gone in the January transfer window. I stand by that. I am very curious to see what caused Cunha to react in that way. Because Cunha's, he's a happy-go-lucky. He does get upset. But to get that upset, something was said. I don't know what was said. I have a feeling it was something very, very nasty. And it'll be curious to hear if Doc heard what was said, because he was right there, or somebody else that can verify it. But if Danny, they find out there was some kind of slur involved, again, I don't know. I tend to think, though, that might have caused a reaction like that. What kind of suspension should Cunha get in that case?
I mean, Cunha's a passionate guy, and for all we know, the guy just said he was playing like shit that game, and it would have been true. So he could have just reacted to that, too. I mean, I don't know really like what the standard is, if there is any standard, or if it's just vibes or whatever. But I mean, I've seen the number of 5 games passed around a bit. I think there's precedent for that with some of the sort of same kind of, violent conduct, but outside of the context of the game. So final whistle's already been blown. And so this is kind of something extra. So, I mean, I don't know even what would mitigate it. I think a lot of times these things are dealt with kind of on an individual basis. I mean, especially when it's between two players, they kind of treat it as if like there's never a justification, which I tend to agree with, that like, the player, or in this case, the member of Ipswich's security, if they were to utter a slur, that will be punished in a certain way. And Cunha reaching out and grabbing his glasses and whatever else he said will also be punished, regardless of what prompted it. It's pretty disappointing from him, to be honest, especially someone who clearly, I don't doubt the love he has for the club or the fans. I think those are sincere. And if that's true, then he ought to know better and to know what that would mean. Not just the actions themselves, obviously, but then, the stuff that we're talking about right now, getting suspended for more than one game, which would be very difficult for Wolves to deal with.
Alex, I thought it was interesting. I read that should they appeal the suspension so that way he could play in Leicester, potentially, that would add on more to the suspension. Like, you don't hear about that in American sports. How do you feel about that? If you appeal a suspension, you risk having more games added to it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not that familiar with that being a regular thing. I mean, I just thought it was a tactic to delay, so I never really realized that they would add that. So what does that mean for Manchester City's charges then, given their appeals process and how tied up in court that is? Although they're doing their part and to try to sink down the ranks of the leagues anyway. I don't know. I think that's kind of weird. What's interesting about it is, because I guess you would do that because you feel like this is a multi-match suspension no matter what. So, there's no point in like just serving it. If it was a 1-game ban, I think we would be having the conversation, like just take it against Leicester, because theoretically maybe we could still beat them without Matheus Cunha. But if he's going to miss a bunch anyway, then I would definitely appeal it and just try to get 3 points on the board, because I mean, it doesn't look like there's a lot of opportunities for that to be had. But I mean, at the same time, who knows? Because, everything's going to change. So, yeah.
I believe as it stands, the typical appeal process works that if it happens during the game, say it's a send like straight red, automatic 3-match ban, and then the team appeal it then because they think it was unjustified. If that's then overturned, or if that appeal isn't successful, that's when the ban gets extended. Now, I don't know the specifics in this context, being that it's a disciplinary matter away from the game, because he's got to contest it anyway. He has to. So even if he says I'm not guilty, they're going to come out with something after he's had his say. Now, I'm not sure then, say if it's a 3-match ban, if he then comes back and contests that for a second time, where A, whether he can, and B, if he does and they still find against him, whether that could go another game as well. So we shall see.
I think 5 games would be just way, way harsh. And that's just me. So after all that, Gary O'Neill got the sack the next day, finally. Paul, it seemed like he was throwing some people under the bus on his way out, though.
Yeah, I think that's the just again, like it was a whole microcosm of everything that's been going on, and I think at that point he probably knew the writing was on the wall. It couldn't get any worse than it already had, so he could go out fairly all guns blazing. But it was just a case of thank heavens that news came through when it did, because the spiral that we've been on it's just so incomprehensible that you've effectively had this dead man walking for at least 2 weeks, maybe even 3 and 4. It's just been a shit show that needed fixing, and just to have him gone was a relief. Kind of a case of anyone but him I'd be happy with.
I'm surprised they didn't pull the old "you can't fire me because I quit, motherfucker."
Yeah, but then you don't get paid out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
very, very true.
I thought it was weird that, I guess maybe I'm being short-sighted here, or having a short memory and some Wolves colored glasses on, but how many managers have said that that's the group at its maximum, and literally just admitted, like in a post-game press conference on pretty much every media outlet is going to clip that up in some form, that I just have no answers. Like, I know he knew he was already done, but that is either the biggest indictment on this group of players, but also like an indictment on yourself. And just that, like, if you believe that is this group of players who we all believe is to be pretty talented at its maximum, then like, how on earth have you lost to Ipswich 2-1? As someone who's coached this group to much better performances than that and has gotten the maximum out of these players at times last season, it was just a really odd thing for him to say. But I guess also that's just kind of heat of the moment. So I hate that that's the last thing that we saw of him, because there are fond moments in the Gary O'Neill era that I would like to remember and look back on that gave us like shades of the Nuno days, right? That challenger mentality, to use Jeff Shee's words. But yeah, not the way you want to go. Like, I mean, it after the goal went in, it only got worse, which is amazing to say, considering it was a calamity of errors and a set piece that, you know, they've given up time and time again. Like, how is that not even the second or third worst thing that happened from the 95th minute onward? I don't understand it.
Yeah, just absurd. So we're bringing up the players. I saw this tweeted out on Sunday, and it was a clipping from the iPaper in the UK. And I actually thought it was really interesting. I haven't heard of this writer, Michael Hinks, before. But I'm going to read you just a little something about it and get you guys' thoughts on this. He said, and while Gary O'Neill has paid the price, it has been the FOSUN Group's project that has led Wolves to this moment. The buy low, sell high acceptance that they will not break through into the big leagues, that despite reaching Europe in 99 and 2019, 2020. Wolves players are therefore in it for themselves, because that's the ethos that has been fed through to them. Play well, get sold. The project is proving their downfall, and it cannot be a surprise to FOSUN, to Chairman Jeff Shee, and to Sporting Director Matt Hobbs that the current crop hardly care where Wolves end up. It is difficult to play for the badge when the owners have this short-term mentality, and so instead of playing for the club, the players are in it for the prospect of being the next £50 million move away. What do you think, Paul?
Pretty accurate, I think, and
yeah,
and really summarizes certainly these past few seasons. That whilst on the one hand it could be a smart approach, but you are on that tipping point that everything's got to align in order for it to be a success, because it could quickly unravel the other way if it doesn't. And I think a big undoing of all of this is and it's obviously had his failings that have been discussed in his issues, but how crucial Nuno was to stitching all of it together to begin with. That this initial project probably wouldn't have happened without him as the fulcrum, and he was the perfect pivot between FOSUN and Mendes, and having great control over the team and the squad than potentially some of the other managers post Nuno have. But even with that extent, you had players within there that, whilst it was potentially a project like Neves, for example, I think they just got so lucky with him that he was tremendously loyal, found a home, liked the stability. Quickly became apparent that he wasn't here for a quick 2 or 3 year turnaround. So we got lucky there. We probably got lucky with Raul and how long he ultimately stayed. Certainly, if there was a summer move from when he hit his heights that didn't materialize, that was probably in our favor at the time as well. But then you had the likes of Saiz that came in and then established themselves and re-established themselves in a new position. Obviously, when we went up, you got Moutinho come in as well, and Rui Patricio, that caliber, that it wasn't just the young guns either. You had some stability and some maturity and some experience behind it as well. It feels like that's been missing over the course of the past 2-3 seasons, that you've tried to bring through these younger players. Some have been more of a hit than others, but you haven't had any of those generals, that leadership, that captaincy material, that real spine of a team that can hold it all together, even if you have got some incomings and outgoings.
Yeah, I hate it because I don't want to just be like, these are a group of selfish players, because I don't think that. However, I mean, yeah, if Wolves get sent down, a lot of those guys aren't going to be playing in the championship. They're going to move off. João Gomez, Ryan Aitnery, Andre, maybe Cunha, guys like that. The only ones that I think for sure, Tommy Doyle will be here, hopefully. Tommy Doyle and probably Strand Larson, but Semedo. I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that, yeah, they don't necessarily face the ramifications, Danny, from being relegated.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I have a tendency to do this too, but I think that we tend to see our situation as like somehow unique. Like we're uniquely fucked or like uniquely poorly run. And, you know, I share those concerns, and I think Jeff Shee is pretty much a moron. I hope he's not watching. Maybe he is. But, you know, it's just like there are other clubs that do this essentially. And I think that like the more that I understand about the project over the past 5 years as details emerge, is that like we've just been like Jeff Shee. When I say we, I mean the club, I suppose. But like Jeff Shee maybe has been like extremely unrealistic. And I mean, people drag him all the time for the comment about, you know, that we're going to challenge Man City at some point. I mean, who knows? That's just wishful thinking, whatever. But even so, the scope of it, I mean, we're talking about things like, I mean, I love that Todd brought this up in the chat, but bringing in Fabio Silva, which, like, you know, if you ignore the price tag, is like a perfectly fine choice to say this kid has a lot of talent. Everybody says that he does. Let's see where this ends up. And then anything that happens after that is just like good or bad luck. But for 35 million pounds, it's preposterous, right? Because there are just so few players at 18 years old who are being bought or sold for that amount. And so I just think that like a lot of times it's really just the scope of these things that's like, what are we doing here? Like, it's one thing to say that our club is a stepping stone. I think that that's, you know, reasonable given our position in the Premier League, that like players are going to want to come in and go move on to better things eventually. That's fine. But it can't be the reputation that we have that you play here for a couple of years and then you get a move to Chelsea or Man City, like our last two big sales, you know, because like that's unrealistic for any team. Like even teams that we think of as like fairly well run, you know, the players on Brighton are great and they're playing, you know, in a way that's better than the sum of their parts, but it's not like 8 of the starting 11 are going to end up, you know, playing in the top 4 teams. Like that just doesn't happen. So like, and we're not even set up to do that. So like, it's more just a matter of scope.
Yeah, Alex, I mean, all this talk about self-sustaining. I don't think it's possible in modern day football, the way the system is, to be a self-sustaining club.
I mean, I agree to a point. I'm not know if you really are going to become a consistent challenger or somebody who's finishing consistent top half of the table. I think you have to accept the fact that you're going to have some good years where you are challenging and some down years. But the thing that I would say about the challenger mentality the self-sustaining philosophy that I feel like Wolves aren't doing that other clubs are, is just that we're reactionary in every single way. Like the thing about Brighton is when they go and they want to go ahead and sell a player like Caicedo or whoever it may be, they are doing so with that person's replacement readily prepared. And that is not something that Wolves are doing at all, right? So like we are essentially, we feel like, okay, we're going to sell Pedro Neto. We're going to sell, I don't know, I guess you could use Max Kilman as an example because he costs almost nothing, whoever it may be. And we're going to move on and we're going to sign these young guys, but these young guys are not proven in any way. Like we should have had if we're going to go cheap and we're going to go young, we should have had Pedro Neto's replacement a season or two ago. Like, how long have we been talking about like when he's going to leave, right? For ages. So
yeah, I mean, exactly. We brought in Pedro Neto to be the Jota replacement. And if anything, you know, we were a bit lucky that Pedro Neto was so ready to go that when Jota slumped that season, he was there stepping up. But like, just as realistically, he was very young. He could have taken another season to get going. And meanwhile, now we're at a point where Rodrigo Gomez was brought in to be the Pedro Neto replacement when Pedro Neto was already 80% out of the door, and he's not ready yet. He looks very talented. I think he should get more minutes, but he's definitely not ready.
Right. Yeah. I just, everything is, and that's why we're always talking about Wolves, like, you know, their style of play being 1 year behind like the roster that they used to have or whatever it might be. Like, you have to have some foresight to be able to operate like that. Like, for instance, like, I mean, Brentford, Ivan Toney's been rumored to every club, you know, that needed a striker forever, and to Saudi for like 2 seasons. And Brentford are scoring more now that they've sold Toney because they knew they were going to get goals from Mbeumo and they knew they were going to get goals from Wissa. They didn't say, oh, crap, we need a striker. Let's sign a 21-year-old kid from a lower league and hope that when we throw him in the starting 11 away at Arsenal in the first week of the season for his first Premier League game, that it's going to work out. Like, you have to stock the cupboard before the cupboard is bare in order for this philosophy to work. So that's the frustrating part, because otherwise, like, I'm down to be that club. Like, anyone in their right mind in Wolves' position or the size of us would want to be a Brighton or want to be Brentford. They've just done it better, more effectively, with smarter football people. And we've done it with a guy who knows nothing about the sport, but knows a lot about atoms and Netflix shows running the show. Like, that's the difference. Yeah.
And one last little thing is that I think one of the big reasons that there's so much hate coming around to Jeff Shee right now, not that there wasn't any before, there's been plenty before, but it's just that, like, I think anybody can see that the idea of the self-sustainable thing, one, is not just like a closed system, like you never put money in again, because it's now this like perpetual motion machine that keeps going. And two, you know, I think we all can see that there are probably some startup costs associated with becoming a quote unquote self-sustainable club. You know, to the extent that a team like Brentford or Brighton are self-sustainable, there's probably significant startup costs to that, you know, in terms of the academy, in terms of bringing in players to make sure that there's adequate backup, and that occasionally, if you get a handful of recruitments wrong, which happens, you might need to put a little more injection in. But it's like, we can all see now clearly with the hindsight that we have towards the pandemic, that like the pandemic derailed things in whatever way. And then they decided, we're not putting money in. And the line we're using to justify that is self-sustainable, not the other way around, where it's like, well, we've put enough money in now to set you guys up. You're good to go now. It was done the opposite way, and it quite clearly has not worked.
Yeah, I mean, it just... I don't understand how FOSUN can be such a huge company and run, honestly, what's a big asset of theirs so poorly, because they're doing the same thing again. Well, we're going to get cheap during the summer, and now we're going to panic buy in January when, number one, you've already lost a bunch of money that you could have made by finishing higher in the season in the EPL, plus the prices are higher in January. Like, it's the same old thing. It's getting frustrating. I don't know. Well, Paul, all that to say, we, I guess, have a new manager. We don't know if it's finalized. It might be finalized. It might not. But Vitor Pereira, what do you think, Paul?
Interesting. I think that was the first moment of O'Neill sacking was like, they wouldn't have done this if they didn't have someone lined up. And after that, it was the case of just waiting quickly to see who it may be. And it's kind of interesting that he was never a name that was bandied around at all. Now, you'd have thought someone had put joined the dots a little with his Mendes connection and his his availability. Not that obviously he was in work, but the sound bites coming out saying FOSUN would be willing to invest to bring someone out of a contract. I'm surprised he wasn't thought of as a possible contender a little. But on the whole, again, I'm still a little along the lines of I don't care who it is, really. I'm just glad he's gone. He could have our support. I hate myself for saying this, but I'm glad he's gone. And to that extent, I wouldn't have even minded Steve Cooper just to have anyone but
You shut your goddamn mouth.
just anyone but
Because
O'Neill.
he sure can't.
So I think this is the genuine, at least it's someone that no one can be fully on board or fully totally against just because we simply don't know. Have I got the confidence that I had when Lopetegui came in, thinking, he's going to turn this around, nice long winter break with the World Cup, get some signings in theory, good manager in place, turn it all around, won't have a problem. I certainly don't, but I'm certainly way more optimistic that we have got at least a fighting chance now, even if it is a case that there's 4 teams down there battling for 3 places, and we've just got to be the worst of the best of the very worst.
It's so funny that you bring up the Lopetegui signing, because like in an alternate universe where like we've been able to watch his time at West Ham now, but that's somehow separate from our timeline, and Gary O'Neill is sacked, would you be as excited for Lopetegui to come in, assuming we hadn't gotten him previously? It's so funny, man. I agree with you. I was so excited. This is the guy that we had wanted, what he did at Sevilla, whatever. But now I'm like, this guy, this bum who can't set up a team to not concede, not have huge gaps in the midfield. I don't know. It's interesting. People have pointed out that he has more hardware than Nuno did when he came in, and a better win rate and all that. But I don't know. It's definitely down to our current situation that makes it feel very much like I don't care who it is, as long as it's someone who seems to have like gotten a decent amount of wins in other places before, then that's probably good enough.
Alex, what do you think about his resume? Because he has been known to be a little bit of a vagabond. I mean, he definitely has gone to a lot of places in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I don't know if we should think about football, whether it's players or managers, in the way that we would, it's hard to compare any of that to real life. But I would say, like, if I were a hiring manager and I'm looking at somebody's resume and the longest they've ever been somewhere, I think is like 2 years, it would definitely beg the question, like, is there a reason for that? Now, he may tell you unabashedly, money. Like, one thing I do respect about him is that he does not shy away from the fact that he managed in China and in Saudi Arabia for money. So, and I think that's what FOSUN love about him, is that he's got plenty of that. But I don't know, there does seem to be an element of his personality where it wouldn't be a leap for us to imagine like how he could wear on people. And that's only from what we see in the public eye. So again, we may have no clue. Players may love him behind closed doors. I've read lots of stories. I don't know, but he seems like someone who can grate on people, but that doesn't mean he's not good. Like Thomas Tuchel, like, never leaves a place without people hating him. He also won a Champions League with Chelsea. It took PSG to the final when nobody, they're not a serious club, and he still got them there. That was pre-Messi days, and is probably going to do some damage with England before everyone ends up hating him and he gets fired and goes down in a blaze. So maybe Pereira could be the Portuguese version of that and just give us a few really good moments in his 18 months here. But who knows?
It could generally be all of that and a massive opportunity that he could, like the touch paper, his style could be the perfect fit for the EPL. Like, just no one knows. Yeah. I'm thinking back now, I'm looking at his, it's different because it's longer, but I'll put his resume of clubs that he's been at next to someone like Areola at Bournemouth. Now, if we had been in Bournemouth's shoes and bringing him in at that particular time, I'd have been panicking. I'd be thinking, like, we're going to struggle here with this unproven guy he's had some success, but it's not been tremendous in his previous stints, and it's not had any of that loyalty base. And look at them now. It's like we could go exactly the same direction, in that it's a perfect storm of someone who's suited to whipping this team into shape, discipline, someone whose style, formation, setup could be ideal for the league, or at least ideal to compete in the mid to lower sections of the table, and be ideal in that you've got that holy trinity back again of Mendes being involved, sending him the players that he's comfortable with working with. Hobbs may be out of the picture now, and it comes down to the manager's decision of, do I want this player or this player from the Mendes stable, and goes with this one. And then some FOSUN involvement, in that we can't have this as a we can't have this entity unsupported, otherwise they're going to go down. So at least they need some input at this tenure. And then if it all goes tits up, then it's 18 months, we get relegated, fresh start, someone else, and see what happens then. So I just think that whole picture, there's kind of nothing to lose.
To your point too, Paul, I think it's a good one. Like, you had me thinking about it. It's almost like the best case scenario is he's like a managerial version of Matheus Cunha. It makes no sense that Cunha is so suited to the Premier League. He wasn't good in Spain. He failed at Atletico Madrid. Like, he was pretty good in the Bundesliga, but not even as good as he is right now. So sometimes, like, shit just works when it doesn't really make sense that it would. And he's probably so desperate to succeed in this league, just like Pereira is so desperate to manage in this league. Like, maybe it will work. Who knows? That's my optimistic portion of the show.
We know the guy is ruthless. The story going around, I'll try to be brief about it, is that he was at Corinthians in Brazil and did a pretty good job, got them up to 4th, and then said, I really can't continue. My I think it was his mother was poorly, so he went back to Portugal, and then just a few weeks later got appointed at Flamengo, which is essentially the Manchester United of Brazil. And so, and he said that he made all that money, and so he doesn't really have to take money into account when he makes a move, which is great. But he's been desperate to go to the Premier League. Apparently, he's been on the short list, not only for us, but for Everton in the past. So I think that, like, he will move on given a chance. But I will say that my optimism, this is maybe a little bit tangential to the whole thing, is that, like, I hope that this gives them the kick up the ass to actually have a short list for who comes next, because maybe things will change. Maybe he'll fall in love with the city like Nuno, maybe all these things will be great. But the way I see it being is that, like, we're always going to wonder if he's out the door, whether it's because we're doing poor or he's at a bust up or because he wants to move on. And so, like, we had better have whoever's next lined up. And that's a tall order. I mean, I have trouble believing it given the way we've been managed recently. But maybe having a manager who you kind of start out knowing is short term, instead of this sort of like starry eyed thing of like, this is the next Nuno, he's going to be here for 5 or 6 years and it's all going to be beautiful. It's like, that's not common in football, regardless of how good you're doing.
Danny, when I heard George Mendes was involved in this, all I could think of was Thanos sitting there.
Yeah.
You could not live with your own failure. So where did that lead you? Back to me.
Yeah.
How are we? Is this going to work a second time, or are we screwing ourselves over again?
I mean,
in bed with this dude.
I've always suspected that the whole story has never really been known about, like, how we rely on Mendes or don't rely on him. When we said that, like, oh, we moved away from him, I really don't think that was the case. I think that, like, especially someone like Jeff Shee doesn't really close the door on someone like George Mendes. But, we may have said, oh, well, our scouting department's really pulling off some good things, so we're going to lean towards them. And now we're leaning the other way. But I think that there is reason to believe that, Hobbs' position might be changed, or he might want to move somewhere himself if he feels that he's not, being used to his full ability, whether people think that that's good or not. But yeah, I don't know. again, it's sort of this long-term versus short-term thing. I just hope that we're not going back to looking at players like Matheus Nunes, and I'm not even talking about the guy's personality, but just like the amounts of money we're spending on him, or Guedes or Fabio Silva, where it's just like there's such big, risky choices for a club in Wolves' position and a club of Wolves' current financial predicament, whether that's of our own making or, something external. One last thing about the George Mendes signings. This is worth pointing out that Vitor Pereira, if he indeed comes in, will have worked with 4 former Wolves players previously that I know of. Moutinho at Porto when he won the title. And then later, João Gomes with Flamengo. And currently, Romain Saiz is on loan to Al-Shabaab. And, of course, Daniel Podence is there.
I don't want Podence back, but bring me some Roman back.
Not sure his body can handle the Premier League anymore, but I would like him back too, in a coaching role or something.
I think someone posted on Twitter that he's actually 6 months older than Dawson now. So
that's correct.
If you think Dawson needs sending to the glue factory, then maybe still be holding the door.
So Romain Saiz can come back and he'll be the sacrificial lamb on the coaching staff who runs out and gets the yellow card instead of the manager.
At least he might be a threat from corners.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Pereira may be on the touchline come this weekend for the match against Leicester City. It is at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. And Paul, what do you think, assuming he's there, what do you think we're going to be looking at lineup tactics-wise?
I don't know. I think like everyone, I've done my the due diligence you can with this type of stuff and gone headlong into the coach's voice video and all of the stuff that you could try and piece together to see what he come out with. And I'm still not sure. So I'm thinking to myself that even like it doesn't matter if it's a 3 at the back or a 4, because it's been crap regardless. So if he can get a tune out of a 4 at the back just by being more disciplined and sticking to their jobs and whatever, then like go with that. So I really don't care. I just think that it's got to be like, it's a really tough game on Sunday because you're starting now to creep into nearly the second half of the season. And what have you got? 8 games that really need to win. And this is one of them. So while I'd love him for just to shut up short and come away with a really horrible, ugly draw in some form or fashion, 0-0, 1-1, something like that, I think it's really important that we try and get a win. So I think that's what we got to what we got to shoot for, really, and maybe that's going to force his hand a little in terms of shape and how he lines up.
What do you think, Danny? I mean, we're definitely going to be missing Aït-Nouri. There's a very good possibility we're missing Cunha. Lemina's droppable now that he's not the captain anymore. I mean, what are you kind of thinking?
I think almost anything is on the table. I think that I lean towards, I think Cunha will be there just because I think that they will probably appeal regardless. And so he'll get that game. But yeah, Aït-Nouri definitely out. I think the tough thing is Aït-Nouri being out because we know that he's used a lot of, 3 at the back systems in the past, which might suit us very well in terms of play style, but it doesn't suit us very well in terms of current available personnel, especially if Aït-Nouri isn't there. So, I mean, depending on who's fit, you could very well see 3 at the back to sort of, I guess, what we would consider basics, with Bueno, Dawson, and Toti, and then maybe bring in a Rodrigo Gomez. Maybe it is time for him.
Rodrigo,
I don't know.
time.
I think that the interesting thing for me to look at is kind of the midfield. I think that like like you said, now with Lamina not being captain, and also the guy who chose him to be captain is no longer there, I think really anything is on the table based on what he thinks will work. And obviously, if Cunha isn't involved, then you open up a second question of maybe who plays in a 10 role, which I think is something that he'd like to do. So you could imagine Bellegarde playing more central, or, something like Hwang being played closer to Strand Larsen, so more central. Again, both things that we all kind of think would work well in the abstract, but it's a matter of how he puts it together, and none of us know that right now.
I don't even think we know who the keeper would be at this point. Alex, I would say I know Danny doesn't like the term must win at this point in the season, but would you say this match is a must not lose?
I mean, yeah, it's going to be the closest thing to that for sure. I mean, you could even argue it is a must win and not just a must not lose, I guess. I mean, we're really in it. Like this kind of sucks.
That was a horrible 3 points to lose.
Yeah, it really was. And if you look ahead at the fixtures, we're right at that point in the season where we're going back around again to that run of fixtures that doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but actually at this point was. That seemed absolutely unbearable, just the absolute gauntlet. And be doing that with a new manager trying to implement a new system, no international break to do so, fixture congestion throughout the holidays, like all of that does not bode well. Like, I'm not going to lie, like I'm not that optimistic. And the counter to anyone who would say that Lopetegui came in, we were bottom at Christmas, whatever, that was the fluky World Cup year where there was 2 seasons in one. Like, we don't have that benefit. Like, we're rolling right on into it after Christmas into the FA Cup and then back into the Premier League, like thick of things. So,
but to put the positive spin on it, going into that gauntlet, if he can shore us up defensively, we're all scarred from having conceded 2.5 goals per game for the first 15 games,
right?
16 games. And so, yes, that seems daunting because anybody can score against us, and we're playing against teams that can score a lot of goals. But it wasn't that long ago, literally when Lopetegui came in, that the opposite was true. We could stop them from scoring, but we couldn't score them ourselves. And so, like, if he can make us more defensively solid, which I think that's part of why he's being brought in, then I feel a bit less fear for that gauntlet than I did at the beginning of this season, especially once we started leaking goals, because it seemed like every game, if the team was above like 16th place, it's like, you're going to score 2 at least.
Yeah.
And now we've proven that there are even some teams below that have scored over 2 goals. So I think that, like, we're partly, being fearful because of what we've seen so far this season. We're scarred. And I will push back against the fact that I don't think that it's a must win. I will say that every game is a must win from here on out. So
yeah.
Danny's
if
been,
you get the new manager bounce, like, what can you get? Like, go on, this would be a layup. We should get this one in the bag.
Danny's got those positive atoms flowing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's positivity if I'm saying every game is a must win, but
well, guys, let's look at the standings from the prediction board. And Danny got 3 points. So this loss is on you, Danny. That's on you.
I forgot what I predicted.
Yeah, 2-1 Ipswich. Alex got a point too. He had 3-1 Ipswich. I was the only one that gave him credit, and I shouldn't have done that. So Danny is running away with it. He's got 15 points. Alex with 9. Paul in the guest spot with 4. And I'm looking like Wolves right now with 3 points. Not looking good, Paul. So, Danny, you as the leader, start us off.
I don't know. I'm going to continue feeling optimistic about this guy. I don't know. He seems like a crazy bastard, but he won't have enough time with the players to like severely piss any of them off yet. I hope. So I'm going to say that we win 2-1 this time. A reverse of our Ipswich score.
Wow. Alex?
Yeah. I am also feeling optimistic. For this match, maybe not everything going forward. I don't know. I just think like when in these situations, like they're going to have a disjointed week of training that nobody knows anything. Sometimes like the opposite of what you would expect is what will happen. So I'm going to go 1-0 Wolves, and like somehow we're like really solid defensively and we get a goal because Cunha plays, and we go from there.
Okay. Paul?
I'm riding that wave. New manager bounce. Suck up the pressure defensively. We score first. Batten down the hatches. It's ugly, but then we hit him on the counter as well for a 2-0 away victory.
2-0 victory.
Wow. Clean sheet.
I don't trust you guys at all, man. Todd said 1-1 in the chat here. I was kind of thinking that as well. And it'll be one of those heartbreaking, we score early and then we're holding, and then Vardy like scores on some stupid ass blunder by Toady in the box, and it bounces off of 5 guys and right by Saw. So I'm gonna say 1-1 draw.
All right. Well, the one thing I guess we can't say for sure, but we expect, and maybe by the time you listen to this, it will be official, that we can count on Vitor Pereira being on the touchline. So here's what I'm proposing, mostly because our holiday shipments of Esfuerzo wines have come in. I'm proposing, cheers, Josh, and we've seen Danny slugging this, the 1-pack wines, wine boys. Here we go. I'm pouring myself a little bit more. And I'm proposing that we raise a glass and have a toast of Vino for Vitor, because it's a new beginning, and because at this point it cannot get any worse. Let's go ahead and cheers, and shout out our friends at Esfuerzo Wines for bringing the positivity in a glass. I'm drinking the 1-pack red blend, the 2022. As Josh is. All right, cool. Danny, did you go red or white? What did you decide?
I went white. I've got the Sauvignon Blanc.
All right. And what's awesome about these, I know Paul got a shipment to Houston as well, is it is a special Wolves wine. It even shouts out the podcast on the back of the label, which is really awesome. Proud supporter of the Whole Lot of Wolves podcast. So thank you to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. And with that, Vitor, to new beginnings, to hopefully not seeing any more shit professional players like you saw in Saudi Arabia that cause you to absolutely lose your mind. Although you haven't seen Wolves yet, so good luck, buddy. And cheers.
And you know what? If he gets a win this weekend, I may have an idea for a regular segment. We shall see.
I like the sound of that. All right, let's get to some of these questions.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
All right, as you heard there, Esfuerzo Wines, Wolves at checkout, esfuerzowines.com. Use Wolves at checkout, get a discount on your order. Get yourself a bit of this 1-pack wine. I see Dallas Wolves in the chat. Shout out the Sauvignon Blanc. Esfuerzo was really tasty, I have to say. This red blend, also very tasty. Go ahead and do it. Your friends will thank you. I've got a couple bottles to bring around to my Wolves watching friends here in New York as a nice little gift. It'll be a nice little surprise. You could do that for your fellow Wolf Pack as well. All right. So questions come to us via X at WLWpod or emailed hello@wholelotofwolves.com. And let's start with Matt Koalas of Esfuerzo, a good friend of ours, and lovely notes after ordering. And he starts out, I think this is kind of some optimism too, because I think there is a expectation that Wolves will, or FOSUN will open up the open up the wall a little bit in January. So Matthew asks, who would be your ideal and realistic winter transfer window signings? Paul, anyone, give me a name. Give me something to be excited about.
I need that Cunha level of signing early, somewhat exciting, but as a centre back, and it's really hard to. And I'm desperate for some leadership. I'm desperate for that spine of the team to be solidified in terms of leadership, organisation. Someone with the bollocks that's going to stand up and fight for the remainder of the season. So this is somewhat out there, but I'm going to go Harry Maguire.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh my
That's
God.
what I was going to say. 100%.
So Josh, you're going Maguire? Hey, he's playing in the back three now for like 3
yeah, I was going Maguire. I don't know. That seems like something FOSUN, who never wants to pay players anything, would suddenly pony up money for Harry Maguire to be the captain. Would he be the captain, Paul?
I doubt it. I think that he's going to he's going to want some consistent, and this is like where it gets crazy. Like again, when it comes to this formation or what he's really keen on, he's got some knowledge of certainly some of our players already, and like there's talk of his midfield too being more of a 6 and an 8, and all of a sudden that brings Tommy Doyle into it again. And what a statement would that be for us to have been talking about it all that time, for him to come in and make Tommy fucking Doyle captain. So just do it, Vitor.
I do think Harry Maguire is a Mendes client, by the way.
Oh, that's it. Oh yeah, that I guess all of our names should
I
Google
should have just
quickly
looked up Mendes client.
their agency and make sure it's Jestifute. Danny, do you have another name of interest?
Well, I'll add on to that and to say that if we're shopping in that market, that I heard that Victor Lindelof might be on the way out of Manchester United, but I think I think another +1 for Harry Maguire, just in terms of like a player that was, I think, unfairly maligned in a extremely dysfunctional Manchester United team, who has his failings, but like, you know, many good players have their failings and would do perfectly fine in a 19th place Wolves team. If we're going idealistic signings, because that was the wording, you know, I saw that Leeds were apparently allegedly stepping up their approach for Kelleher, the goalkeeper at Liverpool. Honestly, if Liverpool want 3 goalkeepers in exchange plus some cash, maybe they can have all of them except for King. We'll keep King because he needs to be on comms sometimes. And I would take Kelleher in a heartbeat. I think that I really hope we don't have, I don't know what the resolution is for the goalkeeper situation, but it would be an idealistic dream in the keeping with this question to solve that problem in January, because it is just such an unnecessary problem. Realistically, it seems like the way we solve that is that Saul leaves in January and Johnson is just our goalkeeper, but I'd rather get rid of both of them, get Kelleher. So that's my idealistic January signing.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. He would be great. Well, I've Googled a couple of people that we've talked about and not found Jestifute ones. I did see Chelsea looking to get rid of Axel Disasi, which could be a loan move. He's a center back. I guess
That'd be a decent one.
Degree of Premier League experience. Not sure he would fix things necessarily for Wolves. This is like maybe not. It's not unrealistic, but you made me think of it, Danny, when you're talking about Kelleher and player swaps and a player who's just never going to play over Alisson. If Josh's thing were to come true, that Ait-Nouri would be on his way out in January, we'd be in need of a left back. I'd like one who could defend and who could play in a back four. And as a super, super biased Greek American who's a big fan of the Greek national team, I hate that Tsimikas is probably one of the best, like 3 or 4 left backs in the Premier League and never fucking plays over Andy Robertson. Get him out of there. Although he like absolutely adores being in Liverpool. Like he's like the most Scouse, non-Scouse person there is apparently, but I'd take him. Shore up play a
He's
little.
just got back from
Wolverhampton's
injury,
not that
though.
far of a drive from Liverpool.
Hey, and maybe the market's softer for him because he's got some injury problems. Who doesn't at this point? Everybody's absolutely gassed. How much damn football they have to play? Nah, that's a stupid one. There'll never be like a fun Greek on Wolves because there's not that many good ones anyway. All right, let's move on. Chris Fisher on X, frequent guest of the show, of course, Florida Wolves. If Vitor means Victor, then who do you expect Pereira to be more like? Victor Frankenstein, it's alive, as in he puts shock into the squad and brings it to life, or Victor Von Doom, a.k.a. Dr. Doom, possessing a strong knowledge of the dark arts and taking us down? Ooh, those aren't the things we want to hear. All right, Frankenstein or Dr. Doom, Paul?
I want a little bit of both. I want like the alive portion, but then I want a bit of dark arts. I want a bit of like fight and skullduggery and really like, playing for the shirt and battling and a little bit of needle. I want to be that team that gets away with jostling the goalkeeper from an offside position and scoring and using those types of dark arts. So I want to have some fusion of the both of those.
Yeah.
By the way,
like
the answer is Victor Oladipo because got promised we're looking good. Then there's going to be injuries again and things go bad. But the good news is he can sing, so he would be a part of Wolves records.
I hadn't even thought of Wolves records in a while, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, and not a lot of people are if we get relegated. That label's not going to be getting the publicity.
Danny, you want to pick one, or do you have another Victor to nominate?
There's not tons of Victors out there, even in the fictional world. No, I mean I'm sort of imagining more of a Victor Frankenstein scenario, more just in terms of shocking them into gear. I think it'll be sort of it might be a bit short-termism, but hopefully he can put the fear of God in them a little bit and get them to fight at least for the rest of the season. Then we deal with the fallout in the summer.
Yeah. Heard. I agree with that. Steve Young asks us on X if Amad Diallo is to Amorim, of course, referring to the man who scored the winning goal for Manchester United in the Manchester Derby and Ruben Amorim, then blank is to Pereira. So let's start with you again, Paul. Who is the player that will have his career reinvigorated or kickstarted at Wolves under a new manager? Maybe we don't see him coming at all.
One word, no justification. This is just the argument, and I'm saying it. Bellegarde.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were going to hyphenate. I thought you were going to hyphenate one word as Tommy fucking Doyle.
Yeah. I'm stunned. I thought, boy, if I had put odds on that, it would have been minus 650 Tommy fucking Doyle.
Yeah, I know that was a disappointingly realistic and subdued answer to it. A really good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I did immediately. I agree with Paul for what it's worth. I think Bellegarde could come in and really help out, being played in an actual natural role instead of out wide. But I will say that when we were talking about him earlier, I immediately had visions of Eight Nori having this resurgence under Lopetegui, and what would that look like if it was Tommy Doyle having a similar resurgency, in midfield, and that would be a very sweet thing to watch. So I'd like to see it. I don't know if it'll happen.
That would be
Paul
LePage
How about
dream.
this one? How about this one for you? Huang Hee-chan.
Oh,
I think it literally could go one of two ways. One is that he will have a resurgence because we know he can be clinical. And the other is he'll be sold in January.
Yeah.
Yep. One of the two. I agree.
he does give like new managers pet vibes, though, doesn't he?
Mhm.
Like
Every manager loves him.
at least at the beginning. And I don't know if Gary loved him as much. I guess it was more injuries that derailed him, but he does seem to win them over. I love Paul's shout for Bellegarde. One of the things I love about him that worked against him because he didn't go down is like his effort, which I guess in this situation, new coach comes in, he's observing, training. He's just looking for that, right? He's just looking for guys who are just going to run their socks off. And I feel like maybe
Mark a
Daniel's
guy in the
also one of those
goddamn
guys.
box on a set piece.
Also, that would be absolutely lovely. I know people probably want to hear Lima, and like maybe Pereira is so crazy he's like, I don't care if this kid is too young and like not Premier League ready. I'm playing his ass anyway because all you guys suck. So like next guy up. But it doesn't make sense. That's the one position where we're good, and Doherty's been good, and like we have Captain Samate if he is going to remain the captain. So yeah, I'll go with Bellegarde. I agree with Paul. A player who gets a lot of heat. I actually like him. All right. Yeah, he's a solid player.
I think the issue is that like we've been struggling, and he comes in and like he's not a player who's going to like absolutely turn a game on its head. You know, he's a very useful player at the thing that he does, and he's unfortunately been played out of position a lot. So like he's not going to just come in and like absolutely like blow your mind, you know. But we bring him on, and then people get upset that we still lose, even though we were losing when he came on.
Ooh, actually, I kind of want to amend my answer.
Uh-oh.
What if a Portuguese manager is the final touch on the Guedes remontada?
Oh man, imagine.
I mean, if you're coming in,
Then he's
and you're
sold
like,
in January.
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, like maybe I'm crazy, but like talent wise, if you're bottom of the league, he's probably still very much a Premier League quality player. Can you really afford to let these guys go? Like, I guess the trade-off is like, if the only way to fund defensive solidity is that, but I don't think they need to sell him. I don't know. Why would you want to
Mendes want to sell him?
Yeah.
Remember.
Oh, true. Yeah. I kind of forgot.
Maybe it would be one of those Mendes sweetheart deals where like we sell Guedes, we lose a bit of depth, but then we're going to get someone very surprising in return. Weren't there rumors about Ruben Diaz maybe moving away from Manchester City? Maybe now's the time.
Yeah.
Oh, my nipples got hard just thinking about that.
All right. Drew asks on X, who will get the most minutes in the 10 role while Cunha serves his 10 match suspension? Obviously, we don't know that. Just being kind of, pessimistic. Guedes, Sarabia, Bellegarde. Oh, I forgot about Sarabia. Bellegarde or Hwang? Who do you guys think? Paul, of those, who's going to get more playing time in Cunha's absence?
I think the romanticism here is the Sarabia one, but whether he's cut out for a relegation battle, I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I mean, Bellegarde seems like the answer, right?
I would say Bellegarde is the most straightforward answer, and partly because also he can play sort of advanced in midfield as well, whereas the other three players sort of have to play either out wide or up top, and there's just fewer slots there. So I think Bellegarde could play closer to the front line or could play in midfield, and so yeah, I think the straightforward answer is Bellegarde, but obviously with the huge caveat that we have no fucking clue what we're talking about as usual. Yeah. And he might come in and absolutely love Guedes or Sarabia or whoever.
Or even as Todd mentioned in the comments, Carlos Forbes. Again, I'm banking on somebody of Portuguese nationality just because that's the easy way out. That's the only thing we do know at the moment is that he's Portuguese and he can communicate with them well.
Carlos Forbes is going to be awesome in the championship next year.
He is a player I'd be excited.
That has been my only consolation is that there's a handful of players who would stay who I think would be really fun to watch in the championship.
Yeah, totally. Agreed. Let's wrap with the question from Stu, who says, have any of you been on local news representing any sports teams? Danny, have you made your way on the television in the Maryland market?
Yeah, I put this in the chat that I had a story, but the answer is no, I haven't. But there is a story that I've told, I guess, probably just in private, never on the pod, which is that in the lead to the game in Annapolis, we were in touch with Wolves organizing some events and whatnot. And one of the things that I sort of got put in touch with was a local media company they were working with saying, oh, would you like to do some local TV stuff? And, can you provide a fan who's local or whatever? And so they connected me with them. And I said, yeah, whenever you want. And like the TV station, the local Baltimore TV station is right around the corner for me. And I was all ready to do it. And I think that they had in their mind a vision of someone who would like walk in with like face paint or something and be like decked out in colors, just like fully dripping. And it's like, look, I'm going to wear the stuff I have, but like also like, I think you're expecting a level of like insanity that is not me. But the thing that actually derailed it, because I talked to the guy from the media company, and he sort of interviewed me and just like wanted a bit of my story so he could tell the local TV people. And he was interested, and that was great and all. And then he mentioned that they were really hopeful to also get a current player to be on this local TV hit. And I was like, cool, that's a fun idea that you think is going to happen, but it's not going to happen. First of all, I know that Wolves are only going to be in the Baltimore area for like 2 days max, maybe 2.5 if you're lucky, but that's it. You're not going to get a player to come do a 15-minute spot in the middle of Baltimore. And I think he sort of led on that their vision was sort of like, if they could get Hee-Chan, that would be perfect because he was a big star at that point, and obviously like Korean population around Baltimore. And I sort of got the vibe that what they probably wanted was like someone who would come do like some like little like freestyle and whatnot, like in the parking lot or something, whatever, for some B-roll. And I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be the most embarrassing American thing ever. Like, I'm never going to live this down once it gets on Twitter. It's like, I'm going to be at this thing and we're going to have like Hee-Chan out in like a parking lot in Baltimore, like broken beer bottles all over the ground.
That and in Hee-Chan style, he probably would have gotten hurt with doing
Absolutely. So that was as close as I ever came, and it was maybe a bit too close. It would have been fun. I'd be happy to do it to try to turn more people out to the game, but I was secretly dreading it because it just seemed like their expectations for what they were going to get was completely out of this world.
This is kind of an unfair question because I was in the sports media. So yes, I've been on local news talking about local sports.
A lot.
Yeah.
Radio, TV and stuff. But it wasn't a lot of it was teams I was covering, not the team I was rooting for.
Yeah. Paul, you?
Yeah, but bits and pieces, like the international like element of Houston Wolves opened up some interviews and things like that. My best one, my favorite one was the first year we got promoted, and I was invited with Paul, who's the Villa fan, and there was a Real Madrid fan as well, and it was to Glenn Davis's show live here in Houston on ESPN, Soccer Matters. It's every Tuesday for 2 hours. So that was a load of fun. But then as that show finished, opened the door, and there was stood the wrestler Booker T, who was using the studio directly afterwards. So just totally fanboyed after Booker T, like lifelong wrestling fan, like used to love him back in the day. Me and my friend from college, we go back and forth about Booker T stuff and soccer. So just like bunch of photos and stuff. So that's been my absolute Wolves stroke
amazing.
Sports personality, everything you could imagine highlight.
Yeah, Booker T's got a presence here in Houston with the sports media.
One last thing on this, and then it's slightly adjacent, but at least Alex and Josh will know what I'm talking about. You know, there's a kind of big list of like Premier League fans in the US that like somebody in the UK wants us to help out with stuff. It's stuff that's actually affiliated with the Premier League, and they want us to come on this like fan zone thing. And I would love to do it. You know that I will happily go and talk about Wolves at any time, except that the time that they want to do it is at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday every single time.
Yeah.
So because it airs live in the UK, so of course it's like at a reasonable time there.
I did not share this because I've been very busy, but it's funny you mentioned that because I did this Monday's fan sound talking about.
Oh, you did?
Where's the clip? I need the clip.
Yeah, they had sent me an email. I was like, I'm on a plane. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice that they have that list, which is great because like for us, especially abroad, to be asked, like they enjoy, like there's certain programs that enjoy having fans from elsewhere outside of the UK, all over the world, to kind of, you know, demonstrate the global fandom of the sport. And it's really cool. Like, I mean, it's like really what we do is really fun, but it's us, and it's like for, you know, US based Wolves fans, but to actually get to kind of dip your toe in those waters at times there, it's, you know, it is great. But I gotta say, yeah, 10 a.m. on a Monday. I had a light Monday. I had a fake meeting in my calendar when I agreed to it, which was like Sunday. After I saw the loss, I was like, you know what? Yeah, there'll be a lot to talk about at least. Like, I'm not gonna have to break down, you know,
You need to find the link.
I just found it.
All right.
Yeah, Danny will find it quickly. Yeah. Which I guess there is a video element to that.
There
obviously
is.
I worked in professional radio. I was on the air a lot. It's like Josh, it's kind of like cheating, but the only TV I ever did as part of that, when I worked in the Milwaukee market, there was Josh will know too. Anyone, like a lot of US based fans will know, in most local markets, there's like this channel that's like Time Warner Cable Sport. It's like in New York, we have like New York One. Like it's not it's not one of like the real major network local affiliates. It's kind of like the cables network. And they did a show where they had a constant rotation of like different sports journalists and stuff on. And I was in my 20s. This was an era in my life. I moved to Milwaukee, didn't know that many people, was out probably like 6 nights a week. And every time I went on this show, I would just be like bloated as if I just came from like a college keg party, like sweating from the night before. And I'm just like, it's those appearances. Like, I'm glad those are probably hard to dig up. Although I hate that I'm saying this now because I feel like Danny can find anything on the internet. But those were rough.
There, he'll find it.
Talking Packers and Brewers, and I'm just like, dude, I'm just trying to get rid of my headache. Like, please.
Dang, Danny already sent us the link too in our chat.
Oh, nice. Yeah. But thanks for that question. It's nice to have a slight diversion from Wolves sometimes too. So thanks to you, and thanks to everybody who wrote in your questions, and thanks to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines, keeping us chipper during the show with our 1-pack red blend and 1-pack Sauvignon Blanc.
I didn't even see the whole lot of Wolves thing on the back because I need glasses when I'm reading small stuff. But then, yeah, I do see it.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, it's looped in there with the information about the actual winery itself, which is really cool. I also discovered that upon receiving the shipment instead of online, and I thought that was a really nice touch. So thank you to them. And yeah, that's that'll do it for No Stupid Questions. What a segue.
And it will do it for this week's show. Thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, you, the listener, or now the watcher, because without you, the show wouldn't be a thing. So if you've yet to check out our YouTube channel, please head on over, like the content, subscribe. That does wonders for our exposure, and any reviews that you can do on your podcast listening platform of choice, those would be much appreciated also. So mark your diaries, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading into this busy festive period, so it will be 4 p.m. Eastern this Monday, which is December 23rd, when we will be back live on the stream, and then the podcast shortly to follow. It will be a review of the Leicester game on Sunday, and then previewing those immediate festive fixtures, which are at home to Manchester United on Boxing Day, and then away to Tottenham on Sunday the 29th. So as we head into this Christmas week, we can go in with some type of positivity and fully atom charged as we wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a mighty up the Wolves.